In the early 1980s, at the height of Cold War paranoia, Western troops were outnumbered 4-1 in Eastern Europe, raising concerns over regional instability, the huge Soviet threat, and the anxiety that Russia's brilliant Mikoyan MiG-29 and Sukhoi Su-27 flanker jet fighters might outperform the U.S. Air Force's USAF's aging F-15 Eagle forced the Pentagon to seek solutions. An agency within the U.S. Department of Defense, DoD, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, was challenged to find a solution. Using imaginative, innovative, and often high-risk ideas, directives were sent out from the Pentagon, listing the essential characteristics of the new aircraft. As big as they were, neither company could take on this task alone, so Lockheed teamed up with Boeing and General Dynamics, while Northrop called in longtime ally, McDonnell Douglas, whom it had previously cooperated with on the F/A-18 Hornet carrier-capable multi-role fighter. The race to create the Advanced Tactical Fighter, ATF, program had begun. So began the 4-year quest, during which the team lived and breathed the YF-23 project, often working 14-hour days, 7 days a week, in a battle which they saw as Northrop's David versus Lockheed's Goliath. The ever-expanding team was sequestered in a large, anonymous building on the Northrop site that had no signage or windows. ATF staff even had to park away from the building, so Russian spy satellites wouldn't be alerted by a sudden increase in activity. The real Black Widow. 2 prototypes of the YF-23 were built, each with a different set of engines, as one element of the development phase of the program was to evaluate 2 experimental turbofan engines. Prototype Air Vehicle 1, PAV-1, which was painted charcoal gray and unofficially nicknamed Spider or Black Widow 2 in honor of the Northrop P-61 Black Widow flown during World War II, was equipped with the Pratt & Whitney YF-199 engines. Prototype Air Vehicle 2, PAV-2, which was painted in 2 shades of gray and nicknamed Gray Ghost, was powered by a pair of General Electric YF-120 engines. The prototype planes were both fast and stealthy. The plane's low profile and classified skin material on the airframe was said to be nearly 100, undetectable by nearly any radar system of the period. The supercruise function allowed the fighter to achieve sustained supersonic flight without the use of the afterburner. The designs called for the YF-23 to be armed with a fixed 20mm M61 Vulcan, while internal bays could house 4 AIM-7 Sparrow or AIM-120 AMRAAM medium-range air-to-air missiles, as well as a pair of AIM-9 short-range missiles. The FY-23 was very evenly matched with the YF-22, while the YF-23 had a top speed of 1,451 miles per hour to the YF-22's 1,599 miles per hour. The Northrop design had a longer range and a higher ceiling, 2,796 miles maximum range and a ceiling of 65,000 feet. By contrast, the YF-22 had a range of 2,000 miles and a ceiling of 50,000 feet. Where the YF-22 had the edge, however, was in agility, something that is of the utmost of importance in a fighter aircraft. The YF-22 Lightning II was simply better in a dogfight, and that was enough to convince the Air Force that it would be the better of the two. Development. American reconnaissance satellites first spotted prototypes of the Soviet Su-27 and MiG-29 advanced fighter in 1978, causing alarm in the U.S. Both Soviet models were expected to reduce the maneuverability advantage of contemporary U.S. fighters. In 1981, the USAF requested information from several aerospace companies about possible features for the Advanced Tactical Fighter, ATF, to replace the F-15 Eagle. The ATF leverages new technologies, including composite materials, lightweight alloys, advanced flight control systems, more powerful propulsion systems, and stealth technologies. The YF-23 was designed to meet USAF requirements for survivability, supercruise, stealth, and ease of maintenance. Supercruise requirements called for prolonged supersonic flight without the use of afterburners. Northrop drew on its experience with the B-2 Spirit and F/A-18 Hornet to reduce the model's susceptibility to radar and infrared detection. The USAF initially required the aircraft to land and stop within 2,000 feet, 610 meters, which meant the use of thrust reversers on their engines. In 1987, the USAF changed the runway length requirement to 3,000 feet, 910 meters, so thrust reversers were no longer needed. This allowed the aircraft to have smaller engine nacelle housings. Japanese FX program. In 2004, Northrop Grumman proposed a YF-23-based bomber to meet a USAF need for an interim bomber, for which the FB-22 and B-1R were also competing. Northrop modified aircraft PAV-2 to serve as a display model for its proposed interim bomber. The possibility of a YF-23-based interim bomber ended with the 2006 Quadrennial Defense Review, which favored a long-range bomber with much greater range. The USAF has since moved on to the next-generation bomber and long-range strike bomber program. Japan launched a program to develop a domestic 5TH/6TH generation F-3 fighter after the U.S. Congress refused in 1998 to export the F-22. After a great deal of study and the building of static models, the Mitsubishi X-2 Shinshin testbed aircraft flew as a technology demonstrator from 2016. By July 2018, Japan had gleaned sufficient information and decided that it would need to bring on board international partners to complete this project. One such company that responded was Northrop Grumman, and there is speculation that it could offer a modernized version of the YF-23 to Japan. F-22 Raptor versus mythical YF-23. Available information seems to indicate that the F-22 and YF-23 have unique attributes, and some reports say the YF-23 is faster and more stealthy. A report in 1991 said the F-22 reached Mach 158 in supercruise and, compared to the reported speed of Mach 1.8 achieved in testing by the YF-23. At the same time, Resort also says the F-22, which is noticeably smaller and slightly more compact than the YF-23, is more maneuverable and therefore superior when it comes to air-to-air warfare and things like dogfighting. Available renderings of the YF-23 show a larger, more horizontal and stealthier airframe compared to the F-22. The YF-23 was more elongated and flatter than an F-22, with almost a stealth bomber type of wingspan. Perhaps, at the time of the early 90s, the Pentagon and Air Force sought a highly maneuverable, air dominance fighter such as the F-22 to prevail in air-to-air engagements against Soviet rivals. Regardless, the Air Force F-22 fleet size has been massively insufficient, according to many senior service leaders and operational commanders, a scenario which inspired a discussion years ago about possibly restarting production.